Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining the Textile webinar series by the Washington State Department of Ecology's Recycling and Market Development Center. This session is called Ripping the Stitch, Business Transformation, and is the second of 4 webinars in the series. The purpose of this webinar is to equip textile businesses with practical insights to transition into or maintain circular business models through real-world examples and peer learning. My name is T. My pronouns are he, she, they, and I'll be your host and through line for this series. Today, I'll be co-hosting this webinar with Behnosh Najafi, founder of Circular Spring, which supports businesses as they transition into the circular economy. Before we get started, I wanted to introduce myself and take care of some basic housekeeping. I'm a social entrepreneur working at the intersection of fashion, sustainability, justice, and education. My startup is called Reform You, and we use education as a tool for personal and systemic transformation. We have a course called A Practical Guide to Sustainable Style, and I'm currently working on some custom GPTs to reduce consumption. So I work on the demand side of the equation or with consumers, or as I like to call them, citizens, but we need supply, demand, and policy to work in tandem. So I'm excited to see people from diverse backgrounds and approaches convening today. I'm also 1/3 of a collective called Sustainable Style Seattle, and we have 7 free community events throughout May sponsored by the City of Seattle, including a clothing swap this weekend, a repair and mending workshop next weekend, an upcycling workshop, and finally a fashion show on May 31st. And I'd like to personally invite you to attend and share these events with your respective communities. And we'll drop a link in the chat, or it may already be there. Now for some housekeeping. First, this webinar is being recorded. Once it's edited for accessibility, we'll post it on Ecology's YouTube channel and share the link through the Recycling Market Development Center's newsletter and website. If you have questions for the speakers, please use the Q&A box instead of the chat. It helps us to keep things organized, and we'll get to as many questions as we can towards the end. Please use the upvote feature so we can see what questions most people would like to have answered. We also do encourage you to use the chat to connect to the community, ask each other questions, share reflections, or drop any helpful resources for the group. To respect everyone's privacy, we kindly ask that AI note takers like Otter.ai not be used. While we are recording the session, it's done with clear expectations and limited access. Third-party tools capture information in ways we can't fully monitor, and we want this to be a space where people feel comfortable participating in. We'll have a short 5-minute bio break later on, but please take care of yourself whenever you need to. And finally, we'd really appreciate your feedback. We'll drop a short survey link in the chat throughout the session. Your thoughts help us improve and plan future webinars. And speaking of future webinars, we have 2 coming up next week that we'd love for you to join. On Tuesday, May 13th, we have a webinar called Hemmed into Cutting Loose, Adopting New Innovations, where we will explore cutting-edge technologies enabling circular textile practices while addressing infrastructure, logical, and economic barriers to scaling innovation. On Thursday, May 15th, our final webinar is called Fastening the Textile Community, Advocacy and Coalition Building, where we aim to unify and empower stakeholders across levels to advance textile policy and collaboration, driving actionable steps for advocacy and ongoing community engagement in Washington and beyond. Please note that this final webinar will not be recorded, so we encourage you to attend this particular session live if possible. And this 4-part webinar series was made possible through the strategic vision of an invaluable network of partners recruited by Megan Davis and Maya Kaisers. This textile co-design team includes Amrit Bui, Lisa Eland Hilbert, Carly Mick, Zakia N. Sita, Leslie Perkins, Elizabeth Paul, Catherine Horvath, Nina Olivier, Behnosh Najafi, and we'd like to thank this team for helping us unravel the global complexities of these complex systems and for inciting courage for radical collaboration and taking action. Every voice along the value chain holds a critical perspective in shaping solutions to this undeniable problem. Let's break down silos and build a unified voice for a resilient textile industry here in Washington. So with that, I'm honored to present my co-host today, Behnosh Najafi, founder of Circular Spring. Take it away.
Thanks so much, T. Yes, so thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Welcome today. This is going to be an exciting panel. Um, Again, my name is Behnosh Najafi. I'm a circular design researcher and strategist, helping businesses unlock opportunities through the design of circular products, business models, and the ecosystems that bring them to life. My entry into the circular textile space has really been in the service of supporting a few circular textiles initiatives in our region, including the work that I've been doing with the Seattle Good Business Network to support their circular economy programming, which has included jumpstarting a circular textiles working group, as well as running design workshops to engage stakeholder communities in creating business solutions for textiles waste streams. And for those businesses on the call today that are interested in advancing a regional Pacific Northwest textiles economy, I'd highly recommend joining their Northwest Zone directory. And hopefully Maya can put a link in the chat window for northwestzone.org. I got my start working in the design industry as a customer experience researcher. So the idea of how circular business models can deliver value to stakeholders all along the value chain, including customers or users of their products and services, is a lens that I bring into this work. And I'm excited to hear more about this from the panelists that we've invited here today. Today's session is all about making the circular economy real, what it actually takes to build and grow and sustain circular business models in textiles. And that includes upcycling, resale models, repair models, as well as workforce development. You'll be hearing from entrepreneurs and practitioners doing the hard, creative, and often messy work of building circular products into their operations and practices. We'll explore where they're finding success, where they see the biggest opportunities in this space, and what challenges they've been navigating. So whether you're a business owner, a policymaker, a designer, or just someone curious about the future of textiles, I hope this session gives you some tangible insight and maybe even a few sparks of inspiration. So thanks again for being here, and we can jump right into it. Before you, on this slide, you can see the agenda that we have outlined today. We've divided the conversations with our panelists up a little bit to reduce the amount of time that you all have to listen to talking heads, as well as to give you a chance to ask the panelists questions that cover two key areas. One is the perceived opportunities and successes that these businesses are having in the context of their work, as well as also the challenges that they've been experiencing. Next slide, please. Oh, and forgot to mention, we'll be ending those conversations with a breakout group session just to give you all an opportunity to engage as a community on some of these topics. Before we head into the panelist conversations, I just want to do a little bit of level setting on what a circular business model entails. And the easiest way for me to do that is to start with a linear economy first. And so what you see here in front of you is a framework called the value hill. Some of you may have come across this before from the circle economy. But on the left-hand side, you can see the way that we use products in the linear economy is we extract materials, we go through some sort of processing of those materials, we put them together, we manufacture them into something that goes into retail. And then at the top of the hill, you see the little head there, that's the customer or the user of that product. And immediately after, that product gets sent into the trash or landfill. And so all of the value related to that product is lost. So in the circular economy, what we want to do is retain that value for as long as possible. So on the right-hand side, you can see that what happens in the circular economy is that after the user um, consumes that product, instead of going to landfill, what can happen is that there are several business models, textiles in particular, that can take place. One is recycling those materials into a new product. The other is upcycling, where we are taking those material parts and creating something new and more valuable with them. And the one above that is repair. And we see that most often today through services that brands provide to their customers to fix or stitch things in a way that creates longevity or durability for that product. And then there's also the resale and rental models for textiles that many of us are familiar with. Next slide, please. From a business perspective, on circular business models, what really needs to happen is designing and building products is happening at three different levels. So first, at the product level, you're really thinking about what you'll be selling to customers, which will, of course, include considerations around materials, the item's functionality, and its aesthetics. And right now, I think we're seeing a lot of activities here in terms of thinking about material choices and packaging. It's really the easiest lift in terms of implementation of these kinds of business models. And then at the next level, the business model level, you're thinking about how to deliver the product, what positive and negative externalities exist or are associated with the selling of that product, and as well as the next use of that product. And then at the ecosystem level, you're not only thinking about the partnerships in play, but also the processes, the artifacts, and the technologies that are needed to implement the business model. All these layers are related and nestled together in a system. And so there's a few more moving parts, as you can see, to track relative to a linear business models. All right, so now that we have that way, we can do a little bit of polling, Caleb, I want to better understand who is here in the audience with us today. Can we launch that polling? All right. So I have just a few questions here before we jump into the panelist discussions. Which part of the textiles value chain best describes your role? All right. We see a few coming in here. Have a lot of policy and government so far, which makes sense given our wonderful sponsors here today from the Department of Ecology and RMDC. Okay. I'm going to let a few more roll in here. If you'd like to respond, go ahead and do so now before we jump into the next question. All right. Policy government it is. And there's a whole another other category. Curious to hear more from you all. Oh, and we have all of the questions launching. Okay, so the second question is, which area do you see as the biggest growth opportunity for circularity in the textiles industry in the coming years? And we see a lot coming through for recycling for this question. Okay. And has your organization seen any benefits from circular initiatives? Um, so I see a lot of yeses for better partner relationships. That's great. Lot of- and also from cost savings. Some have not yet initiated their circular journeys. Well, thanks so much, everyone. This is really helpful in understanding where you all are coming from and where you all are in your journey with circular business models. All right. I think we can wrap up the polling. That's been really interesting now and get on to the exciting part of our webinar today, which is the panelist, of course. I want to go ahead and introduce our panelist. Um, I'm going to introduce all of our panelist bios at once, and then give them a chance to sequentially present. Um, so our first panelist, Nicole Bassett, she is a leader in circular business model transformation. She's working through at Citrus Circular and as an operating advisor to closed loop partners. She's also a partner at Cascade Circular, which helps companies transition to the circular economy. Nicole co-founded the Renewal Workshop. It's a pioneer in circular solutions for the apparel industry, which was later acquired by Bleckman, where she led circularity strategy. Her past roles include director of sustainability at Prana, social responsibility at Patagonia, and head of human rights at Specialized Bicycles. We also have Julie Kimball-Bryant, a maker, creator, and an accidental fashion anthropologist. She's the director of operations at Global Neighborhood. She transforms America's excess into community impact, leading initiatives that give new life to old threads while creating jobs for resettled refugees. She's got a knack for finding beauty in textile waste and turning trash into treasure, and she brings equal parts heart and hustle to the circularity conversation. We also have Lisa Hilbert with us today, the owner and founder of Redesign Collective, which is a Seattle-based upcycling studio that partners artisans with businesses to sew custom products that divert their materials from landfill. Redesign Collective provides textile collection services, giving partners their environmental data and the option to redesign materials as finished product to expand their positive environmental and community impact. And last but not least, we have Zahlen Titcomb with us here today. Zahlen brings a balance of business and technical experience from starting, running, and exiting several businesses, including establishing and managing a full global apparel, materials, and supply chain. He's comfortable in big picture strategic leadership, as well as dealing with the detailed minutia that makes winning organizations succeed. He's tireless in his pursuit of leading Ravel to help solve the massive textile waste challenge. Thank you so much again, panelists, for being here today with us. Let's start by having each of you introduce your business and the work you're currently doing in the circular textile space. And then if you could, talk about what's helping you feel optimistic about your business right now and in the years to come. You could include any successes that you may have recently experienced or industry patterns or trends that you're seeing that are opening new doors for entrepreneurs like yourself. So if I could have each of you address one or some of the questions I posed, that would be great. And we can start with Nicole. We have 5 minutes for each panelist, and I'm going to try and keep us on track with the time here. So I may give you a 1 minute wrap up signal, either verbally or through the meeting chat.
Perfect.
Thanks, Nicole. I'll hand it over to you.
Great. And then, well, can I just say click slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. Great. So if you want to go to the next slide. So I want to speak to you today about my experience with starting the Renewal workshop. Next slide. I was the director of sustainability at Prana, which is an outdoor apparel brand. And we were chugging along doing great business around improving our impact of sustainability in our supply chain and our materials. But what was really obvious to me kind of late in the game was that all the good we were doing didn't really matter because it was being based on this business model. So, Behnosh, I love the slide that you show with the visual. Like the business model is actually one of the critical pieces of attaining circularity. So this is how every brand in the apparel industry makes money. They take raw materials, they make something, they sell it, and that's it. And so the inspiration for the Renewal workshop was to provide the operations and technology that a brand could use to transform its business model from this linear one to a circular one. So next slide. So we started the company in 2015, and the intention was to our direct customer were brands in the outdoor and apparel sector. And we were going to take everything that they considered waste. So at that time, a lot of brands were starting collection programs. There was also damaged returns coming back. There was warranty products that couldn't get fixed. So brands were sitting on a lot of textile waste that was either going to landfill or incineration. So instead, that product got routed to our facility. And we were based in Oregon, so close, but not quite Washington. And we had a couple of different facilities over the course of the years. We grew over time, and stuff would come in, and that's where the Renewal workshop would sort, clean, and repair items. And about 80% of what we were receiving back, we could make resellable. So this was taking their waste, actually applying some labor and time and cleaning and expertise to it and getting this back into a resale channel. So some of the brands resold this stuff on a marketplace we ran. Some of it were selling it in their stores. Some brands were selling it in on a resale website. We were also like collecting data on this whole process and really helping brands start to see what it would feel like to shift their business models. And so we ran the company for about 7 years this way. We expanded over to Europe, and we had about 20 companies that we were doing the operations and supported the resale side of their businesses. But we knew that in order for us to scale, we needed to think a little bit differently. There was a lot of other interesting competitors coming into this space, but at the heart of it, we knew we were an operations company. So next slide. So we sold the company to a logistics company that's global, but based in their headquarters were in the Netherlands. So this is a picture of a Bleckmann site. So Bleckmann is a huge global logistics company that does focus on the apparel sector. And they saw sort of like, hey, circularity is a thing that's coming. How can we use existing logistics with a circular mindset? And so they acquired the Renewal workshop. And their goal was to scale what we were doing in our small little facilities by putting Renewal workshops inside of the places where all the product already is, and that's in the warehouses. So what was really exciting about this transition is we were using existing resources to scale. We're taking processes that are already returns and logistics for recyclers and using what we had learned. Next slide. So I won't have time to get into all of these, but it was really apparent from both running the Renewal workshop and then scaling what we were doing with Bleckmann for the last 3 years is that there is a huge opportunity sitting here for companies who are interested in scaling it, and it is possible to do it. So I'll hand over my time.
Thank you so much, Nicole, ending us on such a positive note. If I could have Julie speak now.
Hi, hello. I apologize for my weak sounding voice. I just got over laryngitis, so I can actually talk today. I'm the director of operations at Global Neighborhood and Global Neighborhood Thrift and Vintage over in Spokane, Washington, representing the east side of the state in this circularity conversation. Our nonprofit thrift store works with former refugees, helping your used goods find new lives while helping people find their livelihoods. Next slide. So we acknowledge that global climate change and refugee flight go hand in hand and cannot separate our employee well-being from our planet's health. Therefore, we're working to lessen environmental harm and promote sustainability. And we do that through non-traditional grading and stocking practices, creative reuse, and strategic community partnerships. And we have a generous voucher program for our community. Our internal philosophy is that the best thing to do with unwanted textiles is to get them into somebody else's hands and on somebody else's body. We work with a lot of local smaller thrift stores, pick up their textile recycling and process it both through our thrift store and through our other creative reuse channels. Couple of our partners are on this call right now, so thank you for being here. We love working with other creative reuse organizations who also love other people's trash. Click. Some opportunities and successes that we've had. I've been here for 4 years now, and when I started, we were not moving as much product or recycling as much product as we are now. Last year alone, we diverted over 1 million pounds of textiles from entering the local landfill. Eastern Washington has a waste to energy site. We do not have landfills, but we turn our garbage into energy, which is a great option. At our local waste to energy site, we have a local donation bin, which you can see in the middle picture, in their recycling area, so people can drop off their recycled textiles and keep those in circularity. You'll see here 2 grading processes. We're going through textiles, we're pulling usable product, we're pulling items for our thrift store, we're pulling items for our vintage. Unique grading opportunity that we have is we have a really large vintage retail space. A lot of the product that we put through our thrift store, other smaller thrift stores have deemed unsellable, but we find value in a thrashed pair of Carhartts that has paints on it, visible wear, and we work, a lot of our clients find that to be fashion. So we like connecting with individuals. We're really close to Gonzaga University, which is just across the street. And a major success that we have had is right place, right time. It is a really exciting time to be selling thrift goods and used goods. Fashion in the early 2000s, when I was in high school, was very limited. You could wear a couple of shirts and 2 very specific styles of pants. If you did not wear those items, you were classified as an other. It didn't matter how the clothing looked on your body. You had to wear those brands and you had to wear those fits. And now fashion is, if you put it on and you sell it, it is good to go. And so it's a really fun time to be working in the industry and rescuing product from the landfill and giving it a second or third chance of life. Next slide. Oh, the textile industry is a really big challenge right now today because of the international tariffs, because of the ports first having too much product and now not having enough product. The American textile recycling industry is built off of the commodities trade. And so it's really challenging to enter into the commodities or into the recycling conversation in a meaningful way that doesn't just have us participating in the commodities trade, but there is a really big community support for textile circularity, for recycling initiatives, textile breaking down. And so it's a really exciting time to be a part of that conversation. Thank you
so much, Julie. Appreciate it. It's interesting to hear about your observations around the cultural shift that's taking place in terms of how people buy fashion. Um, is this another slide that you wanted to step through, or?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think
Okay.
I'm getting into my challenges, so I'll try to keep those challenges optimistic. But America exists off of our, we claim we are recycling textiles, and part of that is true, but the industry term for recycling is commodities trading. Most of our product ends up in the global south. And that's a very universal term. I'm not talking about us as an individual organization. A lot of the product we produce here in the Northwest, big down jackets, big winter coats, thick blankets, hats, sweaters, have no value in the global south, where it is warm, where it is humid. And so kind of debunking the myth that textile recycling is a standard, when really the best option is repurpose, reuse, and
Gotcha. Yes, we will definitely be talking more about that, I'm sure, in our challenges conversation. With that, I'd love to have Lisa speak
Hello.
now on Redesign Collective. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being here.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lisa Hilbert. I'm founder of Redesign Collective Upcycling Studio in Seattle. Next slide. I've come to the waste management industry from an unconventional background, beginning with behavioral research at the University of Washington, then training corporate executives about neurodivergence. I continue to be a theater arts educator with over 9 years of experience. I've taught hundreds of youth to upcycle, and it took 100 pieces of cardboard from Costco to make that 5-headed monster for a Dungeons and Dragons play. And the costumes you see for Six the Musical were made from 1980s prom dresses. Next slide. I believe time can be wasted talking about outside of the box or inside the box solutions, and I say just use the box. And the dress pictured here is actually made from refrigerator boxes. Next slide. Somehow the objections I've heard about reusing textiles are very similar to resistance I've faced in the arts and disability fields. And my material specialization is pre-consumer textile samples from the interior design industry. And these small sample pieces of fabric are used in the design process and often become discontinued and discarded. Thousands of pounds of unused interior design textiles are landfilled daily because the industry does not have a textile recycling infrastructure or incentivization. Next slide. I've spent the last 3 years figuring out everything that can be made from textile samples. I launched Redesign Collective in 2022 as part of the Department of Ecology's pre-cycle and next cycle accelerators. Redesign Collective provides full circle upcycling services, meaning we go collect the textiles and also remanufacture them into a variety of luxury products that are one of a kind, made in Seattle, and create employment for a diverse community of local sewists. Next slide. Here are some examples of the things that we make: pillows, bucket hats, wine bags, tote bags, all one of a kind. Next slide. In 2023, we furnished a high-profile sustainable tech campus in Redmond, Washington. This required us to develop a unique process to create pillows to specification and using a variety of upcycled textiles and techniques. The installation was so well received, the project manager made a case study about it. Next slide. Building on the success, I developed a second product offering, a pillow insert. The inserts are the only in the industry made from 100% reclaimed US materials. The exterior is cotton diverted from Washington, and the interior is 100% recycled post-industrial polyester from a family factory in Michigan. The inserts are made to order in Seattle by a woman-owned business. And we were thrilled when the very rigorous green building organization, Institute for Living Futures, approved our pillows and inserts to be the first in their category eligible for their designation program. Redesign Collective was just invited by LMN Architects to showcase our pillows at NeoCon this June, which is the premier annual convention for commercial interior design. Our pillows are going to be included in an installation which promotes furniture reuse in commercial interior design. Next slide. In 2024, my vision came to fruition with the development of our first zero waste bag pattern. Zero waste patterns create products from a single piece of material with no excess scraps. We've developed pattern placement and cutting techniques that result in the creation of 2 bags with no scraps left behind. And this pattern is designed for use with 26-inch square textile samples. And textile sample manufacturers and showrooms could be inspired, I hope, to see what can be made from their samples. And my vision is that Redesign Collective will become their industry partner to remanufacture their discontinued samples into finished goods for internal distribution or sale at showrooms. And we're excited to be creating end markets and visibility for the potential of pre-consumer textile upcycling. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. For those of you who have questions for the panelists, please put your questions in the Q&A as we progress, and we will be sure to try and tackle those during the Q&A portion, which will happen right after our next speaker, Zahlen Titcomb.
Hi, folks. It is great to see a lot of familiar faces here. Pulling up some slides here for a second. Ravel is a textile recycling company, and so we've developed our own proprietary recycling solution for blended material textile waste. A lot of the clothing out in the world is all made from blended materials. So where you might see a t-shirt that has excellent functionality and it's a product that delights somebody, it's exactly that blend that makes it rather non-recyclable in the grand scheme of things. When we talk about the waste pyramid the value hill that was brought up earlier, that circular economy needs to come together with everything. But what happens when something is sort of torn out and can't be sold again to someone across the street, the Gonzaga campus? How do we recover the materials that are built into the textile? So we developed our own proprietary process to recycle those materials, and we do that in Seattle in our pilot plant. In that world of waste, we're coming through not just at the textile garment level, for example, but we can create the circle from those end-of-life materials all the way through the value chain: textile fiber, yarn, fabric, cut and sew materials, and the garment, diverting it all from landfill or incineration in some cases, as we've heard, and taking that material that is blended, purifying the blended materials, and putting them back into that supply chain to be made into those same items of clothing again. We've been at it for about 5 years. We're based in Seattle, HQ, and we're working with brands and manufacturers locally and around the world at concentration points in waste, which in some cases in the manufacturing sense is very much on the factory floor, and in the post-consumer sense is very much where something has no longer been able to find a home in the recovery hierarchy that we looked at earlier. For successes and challenges, the successes that I'd love to bring up as a starting point for us is that the collaboration from the start, mindset for us. We feel like we've been pretty lucky to be in Seattle and found some really great folks to work with. And it ends up being essential in the way that Nicole hinted at, with different supply chain partners to make sure that we're collaborating. And that's been something that we found very positive throughout the work we've been doing. We'll talk maybe more about the markets and the commodities markets perhaps later, but a market-based recycling solution is also really important so that we're not necessarily burdening other people to pay for our trash in a certain sense. So Ravel operates with this mentality that what we try to do is what we produce into the world is something that is at price parity with what other folks are able to get in the linear economy. And therefore the switch, or the choice to switch to a circular product, is natural, and it doesn't cause a fight between a sustainability role in a business and a financial role in a business. One of the successes that we felt in the context of this group is the ecosystem support. We've been very, very thankful for the support that we've gotten from folks in Seattle, King County, Washington, and even in the context of some national grant programs that have been able to support us along our way. But not just through government grants, but also through the information government's been able to put together various entities and local nonprofits and for-profits and corporates all working together. Mission-aligned people always make sense. It's no surprise that many of us are seeing familiar faces in this group, and seeing fellow innovators out there also fighting a good fight. And then it goes without saying that in the business world, or at least in the startup world, there are highs and lows. And it's because some of this support network and some of this mission-aligned people that we've been able to ride those waves and stay focused on building that circular future. And I'll pause there.
Thank you, Zahlen. I think now we can move along to Q&A, audience Q&A. We have a few questions in the Q&A window, and I want to encourage you all to upvote any that you see there that you want to make sure gets addressed. But for now, I will take a question from Amy Lynn, and this one is for Julie. Could you please elaborate the process of converting or recycling the textiles into energy?
So Eastern Washington has the waste to energy plant. There's the option of putting everything in the landfill and covering it up and waiting hundreds of thousands of years, depending on the item, for it to decompress. I don't know the details. I don't work at waste to energy, but Spokane has a waste to energy plant. So they take all garbage and turn it into energy through their processing. But at the waste energy plant, they have a space for recycled products, because they want to make sure that they are allowing opportunities for anything that is recyclable to be extracted. Sorry, I don't have great detail on that, but there's a conference in a couple weeks. You can come and take a tour.
Thanks, Julie. This question's for Nicole. Can you elaborate on your role with and the goals of the Textile engine and how it aims to transform the textile industry in the Pacific Northwest? She's very curious about the engine in the time of the new government and how we can help it be successful.
Sure. So just a couple of clarifying points. So the textile engine was funded in the previous administration. So the funding has a long period of time that will probably go through the current administration. And then also just to note that it is based in North Carolina. So it is not a Pacific Northwest engine, but maybe this is a good inspiration that webinars like this can pull the community together to think about future applications of things like that. The Carolinas and then like surrounding states have a lot going on still within like a robust textile industry that a lot of people have been able to keep in play. It's obviously much smaller than it's ever been before, but there's a real investment of like what is sort of advanced manufacturing start to look like. What materials could we really leverage that are based in that area? So I just started, but hopefully we'll learn a lot to be able to bring forward and potentially have things like that here on the Pacific Northwest.
Thanks so much, Nicole. There's a couple of questions in here for Ravel. One is pretty short, so I'm going to ask them together, if that's okay. Does Ravel's business model include paying for feedstock? That's the first question. And the second question is, what are your current barriers to scale?
The first one that I'll answer has to do with the different locations and value that feedstocks have around the world. And if you can picture somebody's cutting waste somewhere where there isn't an existing ecosystem to recover it, it's kind of like just taking out the trash. And so if you have to drive that down the street and dump it into landfill, that might be your highest and best use solution. But you do still have to drive it down the street. And that costs some money. And so it's a cost center for some people. On the other hand, there are ecosystems in place where you have someone sorting and grading materials, and someone's doing really good work to recover value from a bucket or bin of textile waste. In the case of post-consumer, and folks like Julie who are having high-touch moments of trying to discover the value in every single thing. That means they still also have to touch the thing that someone might not want, and there's a cost associated with identifying that and putting it in a bucket. And so rather than these, so the answer is yes and no, but rather what I challenge people to think about is like what are the costs associated with identifying, segmenting, and the logistics around getting those things to a location where they can be recycled in our case or reused, and the business models that evolve around that. Now, everything is just going to go get burned. Still got to drive it down the street and burn it. Still got to clean, scrub the bottom of the ash pit afterwards with all the stuff that doesn't get burned. So it's different all over the place, I guess. It's a nuanced industry. Barriers to scale right now, we're as a startup, it's kind of like time and money in a certain sense. We have a very, very good solution for blended material recycling. And we're going through the stages as a startup to prove that to the right people who can then unlock that scale through partnerships or contracts. And so we built a pilot plant in Seattle to do just that, to make volume materials, tonnage scale, to then be able to show the brands and the manufacturers of the world that, hey, here's what you would be buying if we built a big factory. Do you want a lot of it? And they say yes. And then we say, great, we'll build a big factory to accomplish that recycling. And factories take time to build. So we've been at it for 5 years now, and we've gone quite a while. Sometimes it feels like we're banging our head against the wall, but then I look up and remind myself like, oh yeah, we're actually solving something. This is great. Surrounded by a whole bunch of other great people who are working on similar challenges. So yeah, maybe the classic barriers to scale. We don't have a challenge of a green premium, for example, which is a barrier for a lot of people to scale. We don't have a challenge of really nitpicky feedstock, like we can only have pure white this or something like that. So some of the other recycling challenges that exist out there, we've been able to overcome through our design principles from the beginning. And right now we haven't come up against something yet that is not just time and money.
Thank you so much, Zahlen. We appreciate your efforts and your energy that you're bringing to this work. So the next question is from Kate. It's asking, what recommendations do you have for organizations that primarily focus on diverting goods and resale that do not have access for textile recycling? We often struggle to find ethical and appropriate places to find outlets for garments and fabrics beyond repair or creative reuse. Does anybody want to take that question on the panel?
Where are you located? It's a really cagey industry. The challenges, right? Because that stands true for me and my organization too, right? I want to say recycling, and I want to sleep at night knowing that that is true, and that I'm not just sending my goods back to the home of the woman who sorted it, right? Like the caginess of the industry is, once you bundle enough of something together, it becomes a commodity, and it's nothing more than that. So my advice would be to really lean into where you're located. If you're in Eastern Washington, call me. If you're in Western Washington, you're very lucky. And you can be curious with your friendships, right? Like, look for other people who are trying to make an impact, because the best thing to do is to collaborate with other people because this is not going to happen one business by one business. This has to happen by group buy-in. And so put feelers out, ask what other thrift stores are doing, because that's not really a trade secret. And the people who are doing this work are all doing this work in the same way. So making connections, calling, asking for some insight into how do you move your product, and what do you know, where does it go? Because yeah, it's kind of the big ethical dilemma, or ethical elephant in the room, right?
I love that we're ending this section of the webinar on that note. The opportunities that exist with good collaborations and building community in this space. Now we're just going to take a quick 5-minute break just to give ourselves some time to do whatever you need to do at this moment and come back and join us in 5 minutes. I'd say a little bit past 11. Thanks so much, everyone. All right. Welcome back, everyone. So it's very clear from our previous conversations, I think, that there's some momentum building in the circular textile space. There's reason to have optimism for continuing this work. And at the same time, we started to hear about some of the challenges that these organizations face in the work that they're doing, and some of their specific friction points. So in this next section, we want to shift gears a little bit and talk candidly about the challenges that you're all facing, whether it's infrastructure gaps, policy, or just the day-to-day complexity of doing business differently. And the hope is that by naming these challenges, we can also start to surface the kinds of supports and systems that might help overcome them. With this panel, we also have an additional 2 individuals that are going to be joining us. Leslie Perkins, she's the Circular Economy Development Manager from the Department of Commerce, as well as Nina Olivier. She is the Circular Economy Program Manager for King County. They're going to be rounding out our conversation with a discussion on public funding opportunities that we know are so critical to many businesses trying to launch circular business models. Again, before we start with the panelist conversations, want to do some more polling. We're interested to see and hear from you about what do you see as some of the biggest barriers internally as well as externally within your organizations. Also interested to hear about what's been most difficult about aligning teams around circular goals within your organizations. So internally, that would include things like lack of funding, limited staff capacity, just general resistance to change, competing priorities. Maybe you just haven't started yet, but you're curious. So it looks like for internal challenges, it's lack of funding and limited staff capacity are neck and neck. For external challenges, looks like infrastructure is taking the lead. Okay. Lack of funding, incentives also. In terms of aligning teams, internal teams around circular goals, many of you see the silo departments as a big issue. And that's taking the lead. All right. I'll give it a few more seconds for folks to get their responses in. This is really interesting data for us to see. Okay. I think we've given it enough time for folks to get their responses in. Thank you so much for responding. Let's jump into the panelist discussion on challenges. So again, we're going to do the same thing that we did in the first portion of our webinar. We're going to give each of the panelists 5 minutes to talk about challenges. And we will start with Nicole again. Thanks so much, Nicole, for joining us again.
Excellent. Great. So next slide. I think the greatest challenge is that our economy does not look like this. So for those of you who don't know, this is the donut economy visual from Kate Raworth, who's an economist in the UK. And an incredible book, Donut Economics, must read for everybody. But so next slide, because our economy doesn't look like that, we run into these very deep systemic problems because our economy is big, it's global, and it's running on a very specific way. I found this quote from before. In 2020, we did a huge paper about why businesses should invest in the circular economy. And I won't get into this piece, but what was wild is that very few did. Very few saw a huge global disruption as a reason to start thinking differently about business. So next slide. So what we're seeing today in the apparel sector is that there's a lot of companies who are trying elements of circularity. They might do a pilot project, they might do a small thing, they might take a certain material, but they are not changing their business models. And so what ends up happening is you don't get any of the efficiencies when you design for circularity, when you build partnerships for circularity. Everything is like this weird, like keep business status quo. And then if there's time or effort or interest, then we can try circularity. And so next slide, for me, my biggest dream or the work that I'm focused on now is how do we start to actually shift the business model? And so right now you could say I have a P&L today for a linear apparel company, and in X number of years, I want it to look like Toyota's P&L, which means that we've actually started to design the business so that have new sales, we have pre-owned certified sales, we have services, and then we have this network infrastructure that has been built out. So you get the efficiencies and all the wins that we talk about inside of a circular economy. So next slide. So I say that I think it's really possible to arrive at a circular economy, but you have to take a different mindset of running the business. And we're just not seeing that yet. We're seeing most CEOs just like cling to the past. And I'm seeing what's happening today with the global trade problems, very similar to what happened with COVID. There's this desire to just go back to normal rather than acknowledging that normal does not exist in the way that we've built our economy on, and we have to start thinking more creatively. But if we design the products in the system, we can get a lot of efficiencies. We also have to acknowledge that the consumer's not there waiting for us. We have to build that new behavior. But it really can address like this risk that we're dealing with right now when we have disruptions, either by geopolitical or climate change. And I really just think that this vision that Kate Raworth put together of this, like, what could our economy look like, is very clear, like what it could become. And so here's a moment of time of us to actually start to we actually need to build the next economy. So those are, I would say that's kind of the biggest challenge that I've been working with in the last little while. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Nicole. It's really nice to hear that, in the midst of our greatest challenges, that we can find moments to reflect and find opportunities for doing things in a new way. Julie, I know that you started talking about some of your challenges in the first section of our presentation, but I'd love to hear more of what you have to share on the topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, we work with former refugees, immigrants, and main challenge for us is that our community is not included in the conversations about sustainability, right? Every day I'm learning from my staff, from my team, um, about an upcycling opportunity, about a repurposing opportunity. Most of the time it's a woe in that I walk in and I see a pile of 50 pillows, and I'm like, why is this here? Why are we hoarding pillows? Until I realized that pillow batting is really needed within the Afghan community, who wants to take the batting and repurpose it to make couches for their floors. We are sitting on a gold mine of global knowledge, expertise, and traditions, and that voice is not included in the Western sustainability conversations, even though they are the experts, right? Like, we like to package things and sell them, even sustainability. Reusing the jar from your tomato sauce isn't sexy because you already paid for it once. So a challenge would, especially in Eastern Washington, is getting that voice in that community, and that's in that conversation heard. Another huge challenge for us is that we have intention to change, we have intention to recycle and make meaningful impact, but we are still a part of a global cog. Things like post-consumer textiles are very costly to recycle because you cannot guarantee that everything has been cleaned to the same standard before being donated. So there are businesses that will downcycle, that will take post-consumer goods and turn them into threads, but the cost of cleaning is so high, it negates the business, the revenue that you would make off of it anyways. In the conversations with people who want to be doing downcycling, who want to be doing recycling of textiles, it is assumed that the product can be given freely. And to give you some context, my business last year made $180,000 off of textile recycling in the commodities trade, right? So that's a huge portion of our revenue is from this commodities trade. And in order to make an impact, in order to give away product to be handled in a responsible way, we would be making a huge financial loss, which is, in my instance, at my organization, that is our purpose. We are providing paychecks to former refugees. So it's kind of a double-edged sword of, do I move towards the ethical solution of giving away 100,000 pounds of textiles every month, knowing that I'm going to lose a significant portion of my operational budget. So it really does involve an industry buy-in, a full industry buy-in, right? Changing the notion that selling your textile recycling is the only option. It also, the systemic challenges, the fact that this is really an all of us together movement of how do we redirect, get the right people in the room, having the conversations, get people connected geographically. I was messaging with somebody in Iowa about shredding textiles to make shoddy, to make carpet insulation, but because of the nature of the American manufacturing culture, which has been just plummeting, the guy said, I won't take it because the freight will cost so much money to get the fibers here that it's not worth it. So we have our regional issues. We have our the cost of freight, which kind of makes any meaningful impact just non-existent. Market development for recycling. We need coming up with a product. I can give you anything you want. You tell me you want 5,000 pounds of stretchy denim jeans. I can have that for you. I just need somebody to come up with a plan for what to do with stretchy denim pants. So again, it's back to the community buy-in, industry buy-in, and getting people in the room together. So if you have any ideas or needs, send me an email.
Thanks so much, Julie. No, I definitely think there's room for developing incentives and developing end markets that are so critical to this conversation. Now I'd want to shift over to Lisa and have her present on some of her challenges.
Hi, again, my name is Lisa Hilbert, and I'm the founder of Redesign Collective Upcycling Studio in Seattle. Next slide. For those of you who may be less familiar with the term pre-consumer textiles, it describes unused items like clothing, fabric rolls, scraps, and textile samples, which are my specialty. I focus on pre-consumer textiles because they're clean, useful, and valuable in their current form and are generated in perpetuity by the same businesses. We mostly hear about post-consumer textiles in the news in funding, professional associations, collection infrastructure, recycling tech, and the new EPR laws are primarily focused on post-consumer clothing. It's the star of the show, yet pre-consumer textile waste is estimated to be 41 times the volume of post-consumer textiles. The majority of pre-consumer textiles are incinerated or landfilled or destroyed by brands to maintain control of their reuse and avoid market saturation. This year, a report was published by pre-consumer textile collection pioneer FabScrap. They collect from 800 brands in New York City's design industry and just published their Smarter Swatches report, stating that of everything they collect, 75% is textile samples. We need more awareness of the outsized presence of textile samples in the pre-consumer waste stream and resources so that they can be diverted and reused at scale. Next slide. I'd like to share with you now what's involved in operating a domestic upcycling business. Our supply chain is hyperlocal and begins with identifying a textile waste stream. We diversify our income by selling products and services. Next slide. In an ideal world, all pre-consumer textile upcycling would be closed loop, paid for and managed by the business producing the waste, similar to what Nicole was talking about. The circles here are imperfect because we do not yet have a smooth system or solutions. Redesign Collective is an example of open loop upcycling. We accept materials from businesses and have had to create our own end markets for the circle to function. The fabric resale model operates similarly, but does not include the remanufacturing workload. Next slide. Operating a full circle upcycling business has given me the opportunity to self-educate on a variety of fields, and all of this knowledge is required to bring a textile-based circular product to market. So what is the workload? Next slide. There are more steps involved to operate a waste-to-product business than a linear business. An assumption carried over from the linear economy is that profit from product sales should fund all business activities. Next slide. I've identified necessary factors for optimizing product design for remanufacturing. Next slide. But traditional retail pricing formulas, like multiply costs by 2 and add overhead, would generate prices customers would not be willing to pay. If it takes 20 minutes to create a scrunchie or a bag, I will make a bag because the profit margins and demand could be higher. Next slide. We need wraparound resources to share the workload of systemic infrastructure development. I'm hopeful about new initiatives and models for collaboration, like EPR laws that would fund this workload, industrial symbiosis models of partnering businesses with remanufacturers, the funds that could potentially be allocated for reshoring US manufacturing, and the new green purchasing programs that are happening to procure larger volumes of upcycled or sustainable goods. Next slide. This is what it would look like if each of these initiatives were to take on some of the workload. And when we work collectively and share in the workload, I think we can really build the interconnected systems and infrastructure required for domestic upcycling, and the workload becomes manageable. Next slide. One project I'm working on right now and excited about is called Refabrica. It's a new pre-production strategy that would allow upcycling microbusinesses to be eligible to have volumes of their products sewn at local factories. The big concern people have or share with me about upcycling is, well, how are you going to scale that? So this Refabrica model, I hope, will be one of the missing links to being able to enter the linear manufacturing model industry and enable small batch upcyclers to produce greater volumes of product and generate more revenue. Next slide. We really believe collaboration is key for collective impact, and please reach out if you would like to share in the work that Redesign Collective is doing or partner on projects. I'm also really interested in forming a coalition of reuse entities that are developing domestic solutions for textiles so that we can ensure that as a group, our needs are known to representatives that are making policy decisions and that we have a seat at the table during policy discussions. So if you are interested in extended producer responsibility in Washington, HB 1420, please reach out to me. And I also just began a Substack, so please reach out, follow us on Substack to join the journey as part of the Redesign Collective community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate your thoughtful analysis on how to address some of the industry's needs and challenges, and really appreciate the work that you're doing in this space. Last but not least, Zahlen. Could you come on and talk to us about some of the challenges that you all are having as a recycler?
There we are. So for me, or for us right now, sort of in the same categories as I threw up on the last slide earlier for successes. And the first two tie a little bit to what Nicole was talking about, in that we do have business as usual that we're up against when we're talking about a lot of these newer business models or circular business models in some cases. Sometimes when you're trying to get into a collaborative mindset and you're trying to build a circle and somebody is not on board with that circle, you don't have a full circle. It's a broken circle. So when you're going with a collaboration mindset, it can be challenging sometimes to go after everything all at once. And the same is also true for the existing linear system being a very strong market-based solution. It's a very large and from our seat, a very large global linear economy that we're trying to tackle, and it doesn't necessarily move very quickly or change very quickly. And so those existing linear systems have a lot of momentum, and they're the folks in charge oftentimes have incentives to keep that linear economy in place for their own benefit, and that doesn't take into account the hidden gems in local knowledge base for upcycling opportunities, or any of the other ways that we can bring circular economy to the forefront. Sometimes working with big systems and long timelines, we run into a clash with a high velocity startup model. And so sometimes it can be tough to plan around big brands in some cases who work on a very long planning cycle for a product going to market, or even some of the supply chain systems in place that are months long when we want to typically make decisions in weeks. Making sure that mission stays primary as things grow and scale, and when pressures change. We are a venture-backed startup, so we have chosen the path of scaling a circular business model, and that means we're playing in a world that is about scaling and growth and profit, and a sort of the typical how linear business models got as big as they do. And so we do find ourselves like double checking that we're staying true to mission, even though we're participating in a market-based solution, market-based economy. And then startup life is volatile. The grind can wear on you, and that can be a challenge. Yeah, I'll pause there and happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you so much, panelists, for sharing some of the critical and internal issues that you all are battling and trying to implement these circular business models. Lots of new and good information there. I want to remind everyone to submit any questions that they may have in the Q&A section. But I'll get us started off with some questions. Given that there are so many representatives from government on this call, I want to ask any of you your thoughts on what role you think government bodies and our policies can play in jumpstarting or supporting entrepreneurs like yourselves. I know Lisa touched on this quite a bit in her presentation, but I'm interested to hear from the rest of you on this question.
Bringing us together in groups like this, that's for sure. That's the obvious, I think, in my case. Lisa, I love that slide you put together with the colorized, benefits of the different government initiatives, say, or things. That's a huge one. Let's flag that when you throw things around again. So each of those individual things, I think, that Lisa mentioned, the programming, all of them need momentum, and they all need momentum together. And I think that's where, when we bring the group like this together and everyone gets to hear each of our perspectives, and I think great job in selecting a variety of different perspectives here, that's when we can figure out how the solution can be Pareto optimal and lift all boats. And I just looking around this room, I'm pretty darn sure that each of us has benefited from being very different businesses in some senses, benefited from the support in a bunch of those systems. Sometimes in the same programs, but sometimes completely separate and differently. So it's one size does not fit all necessarily, and I could take that a bunch of different directions in the context of textiles and clothing.
Anyone else have any thoughts that they want to share about this? The question?
I might add, I think it's really important. I'm always surprised whenever I have a meeting with anyone who's in government talking about policy, and they're like, okay, well, how do we, like, whenever I'm at a conference with businesses, they're like, oh, well, we can't do anything until policy changes. And then I hear policy people be like, we can't do anything until these companies want to change. Otherwise, they're like fighting us on everything. And so I find that really a fascinating dynamic of relationship. But I can say from the business community, like we change real fast when there's a policy in place. I've worked at some wonderful companies that knew better, didn't do different until the law came into place and we had to get rid of something. And so that really does matter. And businesses are also very creative. They love an even playing field. And so when there is stuff that shows up and if you hear resistance, like don't take the first no. Like definitely explore it and push on it a lot harder because companies do evolve and change and have over time to policy. So yeah, I'm sort of not defending, I'm sort of the opposite. I'm saying companies can be kind of jerks. So uh, have the policy piece, know that you have an important tool.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for those thoughtful responses. Curious to know what, we're talking a lot about collaboration, partnerships. Are there any types of partnerships that have been really critical to supporting your businesses? And what kinds are you still looking for, if any? And anyone is free to take that question.
It's such a big answer. I don't even know.
Okay.
Echoing what Nicole was saying, I thought that businesses would be eager to fund my efforts if I provided a really quality service with integrity and gave them all the data showing how great it is to divert their materials. But I have not been able to successfully get businesses to voluntarily invest in collection, even if they have a sticker on their window, even if they get a shout out on social media. Truly, policy is going to be the only thing that requires them to invest in a business like mine to do the hard, the full workload to properly reuse and manage textile waste. And also with investment, I think that it's a very competitive landscape to win funding that is focused on circular innovation. And I think textiles often are overlooked because we're in a strange in-between category. We could be plastic, we could be organics. Textiles are kind of overlooked. And I think that right now, a lot of investment is focused on logistics, tech, an AI collection system, an app. If I just recreate a version of Redesign Collective that would be in that format, it would entice investment. And I just want to communicate that upcyclers have already created these systems that are lean, and collection innovation isn't the issue. And we need upcycling to scale. We just need more procurement of product and markets. Those are the partnerships that we need, and that have really, it's just one person who makes that decision. Ultimately, the person with the buying power, the person who has the budget and the line items that are needed. And it's been single individuals at big organizations that have believed in me to give me those opportunities, which then have evolved into these new innovations in design. It snowballs. And truly the workload that I describe is truly, it's a snowflake that would not fit on one PowerPoint slide. Each one of those pieces to the circle is complex in itself. And as you fund end markets and procure more upcycled goods, it just strengthens and grows the capability of the industry.
Thank you so much for that call out, Lisa. The importance of policy incentives. Those are really great call outs. I have a couple of questions that have come in the Q&A. Deb is asking, to what extent does a lack of certainty that newly developed or released products will sell or contribute to a lack of investment in circularity and higher quality construction by brands? Does anyone want to take that question? Do you?
I could just toss out a really quick anecdote, which is I've always go back to and I love, which is the way of comparing clothing around dollars per wear. When you think about whether something will sell or not, when we talk about quality, it sort of baffles me when I'm on a call with a brand that I know makes either high quality stuff or low quality stuff, and I sort of ask them about dollars per wear. How do you think about dollars per wear? And they're like, never thought about it that way. I was like, what? What are we talking about here then? I always thought that was a fun one if people figure out how to adopt that a little bit more into the value proposition of quality in certain senses, because we're struggling in a lot of places. We have a consumption problem that's as the global north, generally speaking, has a consumption problem, and we don't really think about that dollars per wear. We just think about the dollars. A little bit out of my realm of expertise, but that's a fun one. That's always been a fun one for me.
I love that. That trickles into, people will comment, what's the future of the thrift world? What's the future of the thrift industry? And it depends on the initial consumer's buying choices, right? Like some local leaders were asking for fast fashion brands for this conference because they're doing a trash and show. And my graders were so excited because finally there was going to be some good put to that Shein bag of nonsense. And so we think about thrifting as a sustainable option, but what's going to happen in 20 years when everything in the thrift store is trash that costs more to buy secondhand than it does to buy new, that costs more to put on the store or on the floor than it does to make initially. So yeah, loving talking about price per wear and making sure that you're buying a garment that can outlive your, I don't know, trip home. It doesn't fall off your body.
To echo that point, the thing about being a sustainable brand is that if you put the effort into making a high quality product, and your customer base is not likely to overconsume what you create. So as you get a customer and you sell them a bag, they might be using that bag for a really long time. And so the work just expands to capture more of the market. And upcycling brands and sustainable brands in general have shouldered the work to educate the consumer to create the buzz around secondhand. And this has just emboldened big corporations to do greenwashing and what I refer to as fake cycling. These, patchwork denim looking coats that were made from virgin materials to look upcycled. And these well-resourced entities use marketing funds to divert customers toward their less expensive version, slightly less expensive version, but enough that they have calculated that it will convert a customer who's interested in that look and in whatever marketing that they've done to make it seem on par with a local sustainable brand. It's really led to a burnout of a lot of sustainable brands. And I've seen this industry brain drain where people achieve a level of excess and then completely leave the industry because they've just been copied by these larger brands and they can't compete with the funds that it takes to get the clicks and to ultimately close the sale for online customers and for wholesale.
Back to the conversation about policy, right? We have the same conversation with textiles recycling than we do with plastics recycling, right? We get blamed as a consumer because I bought a bottle of Pepsi, and there's tons of plastic on the beaches. it's easy to point the blame at us as the consumer, but it's the man behind the curtain who created the chaos. And it's the same with this fast fashion, with it's our responsibility as consumers to buy quality garments. And it's also the responsibility of the fast fashion manufacturers to handle their textiles with respect and appreciation for this planet. So there's a new bill coming through in Washington, which is going to be very exciting and interesting to see how that trickles down to all of us.
Yeah, I've heard people say, as consumers, we didn't create the linear economy and all the problems that accompany that linear economy. So we don't want to also so yes, and so businesses do have, and policy does have a responsibility to deliver goods that are beneficial to us as well as the environment, as well as to the local economies. So thank you so much, panelists, for this wonderful discussion. Unfortunately, we are near the end of time. There's a couple of questions in the Q&A that I'm hoping that you all may be able to address in chat. There's one from Christine and one from Amrit. But for now, I think I want to move us over into our small breakout groups to give us a chance to chat with one another. One of the goals for this webinar is really not just to hear from leaders like our panelists. Oh, I am so sorry. Thank you so much for the wonderful reminder that we still have Nina and Leslie with us right now. I'm so sorry, you all, to talk with us about funding opportunities in this space. As we know, this is a huge gap in how we can support our local businesses. And so, Leslie and Nina, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk to us about some of the both the funding and general resources that businesses can take advantage of in this space. I'll hand it to Leslie to get us started. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm Leslie Perkins from the Washington Department of Commerce. It's so great to see everyone here. I just want to really give a shout out to everyone who took the time to come and participate. It's just really neat to see this audience here today to have this valuable conversation. I want to briefly highlight just some resources briefly here for folks that are available across our statewide landscape. And then I'll hand it off to Nina Olivier from King County, and she's a regional leader in growing our thriving economy as well. So my first slide, which focuses on the Recycling Market Development Center, I won't go too into depth because you've heard already a little bit about this great collaboration. This is a state agency partnership. We're based in statute for collaboration to advance market development and sustainable solutions for those challenging waste materials. So think of textiles, think of those things that aren't those easy single streams to pick up. This agreement really gives folks that value added to have more access to resources at both of our agencies. The pillars that really guide our work is convening, so what we're doing today, innovation, assistance, and research. And they love a good challenge. So the RMDC, we fund the Next Cycle Circular Business Accelerator Program that I think some folks in the audience have participated in. And its diverse public and private board of directors holds meetings, advisory board, that our meetings are open to the public to attend. So I invite you to check that out. Our next slide, which is just to touch briefly, there are so many great examples, but on business assistance and funding resources across the state. And just to kind of frame it a little bit, in March, Washington was ranked 5th overall for the most innovative states in the nation, which is great news. That was through the assessment by the Platform Wallet Hub that you're familiar with. Washington also had ranked first in 2024 for its strong state economy. The criteria used including the number of exports per capita and business startup activity. So as you know, and we've been talking about, it's awesome to be recognized as a hub for innovation. And that's what Washington's, I think, super strength is. In fact, a fun textiles trivia fact I was trying to think, I ran across it when I'm getting prepared for this webinar, is that the quilted down parka jacket was created here in 1936 by a very young 22-year-old Eddie Bauer that was inspired after his very cold, wet fishing trip. So we have a lot of great innovations that started rooted here in Washington State. But with recent factors, as have been touched on, it can lead to some uncertainty, even economic volatility for industry. And that's more important than ever to lean into the strong organizations and partners in Washington's ecosystem that we are blessed with. So just a few of the highlighted examples. There are so many great ones across the state, but I just wanted to touch on a few. So this is not an inclusive list. We have a network of associate development organizations. These represent 39 of the 39 counties, so it covers every county in our state, and they work to build economic opportunities, businesses, or projects in their respective county. We also have the Washington Micro Enterprise Association, a great group which provides training assistance and network resources for micro businesses, which are typically 5 employees or less. Impact Northwest offers expertise for all aspects of manufacturing for small to medium organizations. Also, the U.S. Small Business Administration, which provides a broad range of federal programs and services, and they have offices in Seattle and Spokane. Within state government, so kind of bringing the focus in a bit, just a couple of touch points. Again, just a few examples, not all inclusive. We have the Office of Regulatory and Innovation Assistance, called ORIA. This really serves as an initial central assistance to guide through all state regulations and permit processes. So if you're feeling overwhelmed about citing a facility or what do I do to get a business license, this is a great first stop. We also have a small business liaison team that is a partnership of 29 state agencies. They develop outreach programs, solicit ideas for regulatory improvement, and develop new business tools. Fund Hub is a portal that connects you to climate-related state and federal funding opportunities. Definitely encourage you to check that out. You can go in and filter and search based on your criteria. Department of Revenue also. Great stop to, even though they deal with taxes, and that's not our favorite topic, but they do have resources for deductions and credits. So to look at their incentives page and take a look at that list, see what might apply to your business. So our next slide, I'm going to take a quick, fighting a little throat raspiness. Sorry about that if my voice is getting a little raspy. So bringing it in even more to our agency. So I'm with the Department of Commerce. As an agency, Commerce has a broad range of programs, services, funding assistance across divisions in housing, energy, local government, community services, and economic development. Our motto is strengthening communities and growing our economy. Within our division, the Economic Development and Competitiveness Division, the work that our teams do includes small business education and training, finance services, community support, and even export assistance. But we also work with larger industry entities as well, not only in our state, but across the country and even overseas to attract and recruit new businesses and employers to locate here. It's really important for us to attract and have those businesses come to Washington and to set up their businesses. And also to help those companies navigate challenges and regulations so they can stay and thrive in Washington and not move elsewhere. You can check out our website, which is choosewashingtonstate.com, to connect with these programs and other resources. Our Small Business Resiliency Network, a great program. It's assistance for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and nonprofits with an emphasis on those typically owned by historically marginalized and underserved persons. We just created a tariff resource guide that's on our website that outlines recent proposed tariff actions and resources for minimizing your tariff exposure. So in that supply chain, we have a property site selector tool that lets you tailor searches for locations, buildings, and specifications. Some flex funds, which are affordable loans for a variety of business expenses. Our small business export assistance team, works with the SBA on a STEP voucher program to help small businesses get into the export business. Startup Washington, which is entrepreneurship training and an accelerator. And then, of course, our Recycling Market Development Center, where we convene and have technical and market resources. And then going into narrowing down why I'm here, which is the Industrial Symbiosis Grant Program, which was one of my major roles, is an annual funding for eligible projects. So we can look into that a little more detail on the next slide. So this is just a lot of words for industrial symbiosis is just one tool to support a thriving circular economy, where basically one industry's waste materials can be captured, transformed into another organization's valuable resources. In 2021, it was inspired from the pioneering example that is taking place in Denmark, in Kalundborg. Washington decided to establish the statewide industrial waste coordination program, and this provides funding, support, technical assistance, and best practices to really catalyze our local industrial symbiosis projects. So we operate through 2 legislative statutes, and it's really a shift in systems to creating value from waste rather than just causing harmful impacts to our communities. This Commerce Funding Program is administered to provide grants for innovative projects to divert and recycle industrial waste for beneficial use. Again, just let's look at other ways so they're not just disposed of in a landfill or incinerator. We can actually get value out of that waste rather than disposing of it. Waste transformation can provide an organization's feedstock, supply chain, and materials to support facility operations. Our project focus areas supported by the Industrial Symbiosis Grant Program can include, it's not only, but this is just some areas that it's a pretty broad range: waste heat, agriculture, textiles, of course, waste plastic, forestry, biomass, food waste, utilities, built energy waste, and multi-partner facilitation. And so we would encourage textiles, so keep our program in mind as you're thinking about those innovative solutions. These annual competitive grants do support projects to demonstrate that outputs of waste can become innovative inputs for business. And since the program start, we've invested over $5 million into projects, 27 projects that are located in 14 counties across the state. So we're really excited about that. Apologize for my little frog there. What's exciting, we get excited anytime we get to see the progress of these projects, even though it's a young program, but it really supports the goals to reduce our environmental impacts, conserve and extend our resources, build a resilient supply chain, and create jobs and economic activity in rural, suburban, and urban communities. Keep in mind us for our next application opportunity. We don't have a definitive date yet. We're anticipating it midsummer. Ideally, our fiscal year starts July 1, so we'll have more details just shortly after that. And invite you to connect with us to try to chat more about this program and to see if it would meet your plans. So thank you for that. I also want to right now hand off to Nina, who's a great partner and leader in our local circular economy.
Thank you so much, Leslie. That was a fantastic overview of the state funding, resources, technical assistance, programming. We're going to zoom in a little bit. For folks who don't know me, I'm Nina Olivier. I'm the Circular Economy Program Manager for King County's Solid Waste Division within the Recycling and Environmental Services section. I have the wonderful opportunity to help co-manage several of our involvement in grant programming that we'll talk about today. And I'm excited to kick off by talking about REPlus. Our REPlus strategic plan is King County's roadmap to achieving a circular economy. Through this plan, there's several fast start actions, including policy development, program management, working with cities and jurisdictions, improving our recycling infrastructure, composting infrastructure. And a main piece of this REPlus strategic plan is also the implementation of our REPlus Circular Economy Grant Programming and our REPlus City Grant Programming, which I'll go into more detail. These grant programs deliver on REPlus by supporting local innovations that help meet our zero waste of resources goal and co-deliver climate and equity objectives. Next slide, please. We'll start with our King County RE+ Circular Economy grants. This RE+ Circular Economy grant includes projects that create more circular economy where waste is minimized, materials are kept in use longer, and natural systems are generated. These yearly annual grant programs have provided over $2.2 million. A lot of these funds go for prevention and reuse. The funds are awarded to nonprofits, small businesses, and they have a great long-term potential and lasting impact. And many of the projects we look for incorporate a strong equity focus. These King County RE+ Circular Economy grants are open to any project and or small business, organization, nonprofit that is diverting waste from King County's landfill. So if you have a project that's impacting the King County solid waste system, we highly recommend you checking out our next RE+ Circular Economy grant program. I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat, and you can check out our past latest Cycle 3 grant awardees, which was really exciting. I'm sharing on the screen our Cycle 2 grant awardees statistics. This has just been a really great community, small business focused circular economy grant provided by King County. Next slide, please. Great, and we also provide new efforts that further RE+ goals and encourage regional collaboration through our city grant program. So we're really excited to announce that the RE+ City Grant application period is now live for the 2026-2027 program period. The applications are due on May 30th, 2025. And if you are a city and or small business working and partnering and collaborating with the city, please feel free to check out this grant opportunity. It's a fantastic opportunity for, again, that collaborative small business to organization to regional city projects. Some fun Cycle 1 grant program statistics. Sorry, the text is a little bit small, but we've developed several strategies and initiatives from this city grant program, including the implementation of our RE+ community panel, priority materials, including paper, plastic, organics, and some textiles have been implemented through this grant program. Our focus area for grant programming is reuse, recycling, and equity and social justice. And we received 5 applications the last cycle, totaling to about $450,000, and 12 cities participated, which was awesome. And proposals were evaluated by community members and, of course, solid waste division representatives. One fun project that came out of the Circular City Grant program that I love sharing was the collaborative project the Refugee Artisans Initiative and the City of Kirkland implemented to create small multifamily recycling tote bags made of recycled banners, vinyl material. In multifamily buildings, often it's hard to remember to recycle, and that banner vinyl material was upcycled and created into these small tote bags to help folks sort their recycling in apartment buildings throughout Kirkland. So that was a really great Kirkland Refugee Artisans Initiative collaborative project. Next slide, please. Awesome. And we've been hearing a little bit about Next Cycle Washington, but I wanted to also provide an overview of some of the fantastic programs and projects that have come out of that and opportunities for folks to receive technical support and grant funding through the Next Cycle program. So King County, along with our fabulous Washington Department of Ecology and Department of Commerce, as well as Seattle Public Utilities, all contribute to the Next Cycle Washington team. Next Cycle Washington was developed to coordinate a program to support businesses, community-based organizations, and individuals working to expand the circular economy in Washington State. We center zero waste and circular economy, a just transition for equitable futures, and ensuring that we're investing in climate action. Next slide, please. The Next Cycle Washington program is broken up into two main tracks at the moment, although we're exploring new tracks as well. But currently we have the Circular Accelerator program and then the Renew Seed Grant Program. The Circular Accelerator Program is a 6-month program designed to support and advance promising circular businesses and projects. They include workshops, business and technical assistance, pitch development, matchmaking, funding pathways, sustainable business development. We're really excited to announce the Pitch Showcase event coming up for Cohort 3 on May 19th. For those of you going to WSRA, please join us for this event as it's also taking place just outside Spokane. And then Renew Seed Grant Program will be launching in 2025. We're really excited about this. This is a King County Next Cycle program collaboration of mini grants up to $10,000 for early stage projects for businesses, including startups, small and large, CBOs, tribal governments, and research institutions. This Renew Seed Grant Program also provides access to mentors, consultants, networking support, technical assistance, and ensuring businesses have a growth plan. So please stay tuned. We'll be launching that program soon. And then zooming in a little bit more, next slide, please. On behalf of Seattle Public Utilities, I'm very honored and excited to present to you all their grants and funding opportunity. And I put this page in the slideshow just because this is a fantastic one-stop shop of grant funding opportunities that is offered through Seattle, City of Seattle, not just Seattle Public Utilities, that I welcome folks in the textile industry to check out. And I just posted the link in the chat. And if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about two funds that might be of interest to folks on this call. The City of Seattle has an environmental justice fund that invests in diverse community efforts addressing climate change, advancing environmental justice, including arts and storytelling, community education, capacity building, climate preparedness, green jobs development, and community planning and visioning. They just released their application for access to grant funding through this fund. And I highly recommend folks checking that out. Applications are due June 3rd of this year, and eligible projects must focus on advancing climate and environmental justice, also establishing partnerships with those most impacted by climate inequalities, and then those who benefit who live, learn, work, worship, and play in Seattle. So if you have a project that is doing great work in the city of Seattle, highly recommend checking that out. And I just posted a link in the chat to this specific fund. And then next slide, please. Lastly, just launched last month is the Waste-Free Communities Grant through Textile, with a specific focus on textiles. Seattle Public Utilities just launched this grant program. It's a 2025 waste-free grant program that focuses on textile waste prevention projects that provide job training and employment opportunities for refugee and immigrant women. Check out the application and the grant details. I'll provide the link in the chat. It is also featured in that main grants hub through the City of Seattle, and many other opportunities that might be culturally or art relevant. And I welcome you to explore other grant and technical assistance programming within our wonderful local sort of zoomed in region here of the Pacific Northwest. And last slide, please. Thanks all. Here is both Leslie and I's contact information. I'll also post my email in the chat. It was such an honor to serve as a speaker on today's panel, and thank you for sharing the challenges many of you are facing and potential that local governments can play in, and the role we can take to ensuring that circularity for textiles is accelerated and made a priority.
Wow. Thank you so much, Nina and Leslie. That was a wealth of information. And yes, definitely, I would encourage all of you to reach out to them if you have any questions or follow up about the information they just shared. Okay, now we are for real going to the breakout rooms. where we will have we're a little bit running back behind time, so we're going to give this about 10 minutes to discuss a few questions. One is just to do, in the spirit of building community, we're going to do a lightning round of introductions. So each person in the breakout group, please quickly introduce yourself with your name and affiliation. And then we'll have some of you in the group reflect on the question and discuss what could be a meaningful first step your organization could take to move towards a circular business model, and what support would you need to do that type of work. After the breakout rooms, after we have these small discussions, we'll come back together to share some highlights of our discussion. If any of you find yourself in a room where the mics and the cameras for the other participants are shut off, please feel free to come back to the main room and we will put you in another group. And so with that, Caleb, would you be able to assign us to some small breakouts? Anybody want to share out a little bit about what was discussed in their breakout group? Oh, I know it's always too short, Lauren. Anything interesting come up? Sydney, you look like you want to come online. Yes.
Yeah, I can share for my group.
Thank
We
you.
had two businesses in our room, but unfortunately Cleo with Ready Use wasn't able to talk with mic problems. But Cleo's business is a jewelry recycling to reclaim those precious metals. So if anybody has jewelry, check out Ready Use. But we also got to talk a little bit more about Ravel and the journey that Ravel has had, obviously being much past a first step, but we were reflecting on the importance of really designing around the idea that the circular option needs to be in really easy swap for the existing market, and designing around that as a leading principle. And challenges moving forward, really just proving the ability to scale sustainably. Kristen, jump in if I didn't capture something.
Yeah, I think we heard a lot about that today with Zahlen on the line for sure. Anyone else want to talk about perhaps supports that they might need in the work that they do? Okay.
I can.
Okay, wonderful, Lauren.
So as a startup founder in this space, I have a lot of people who think we're doing good work, and I need to be connected to the people who have lots of different skill sets, who are willing to kind of do the hard work of getting something off the ground. So like getting connected to Ecology is amazing and all of these grants. But we're in this constant struggle of our team's fractional, or I need a technology leader, or I need a co-founder who can run with me. And so just staying connected to not just who the organizations are, but like who the actual people are who are willing, and how far are they willing to like go down and go in with you. Because there are even people that I've already pinged, like, can we have a conversation? I just want to like learn from you a little bit. But at some point I have to find the people who are ready, who are looking to join something in motion and go further. So from a really basic resource of just people is really, really important.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I would encourage you to reach out to Sydney and I know you are also already plugged into the Seattle Good Business Network circle, and then hopefully the Northwest Zone directory if you have seen that. If you haven't, please sign up there, because I think that they are really doing a lot of good work in terms of bringing together community players in the space. All right, you all. Of course, we're short on time, so I would love to now shift the conversation back over to T to help us learn some high-level themes and takeaways that we can ruminate on after our session together today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So a huge thank you first to our speakers and panelists, my co-host, everybody at the Department of Ecology and the RMDC, and to all of you for your participation. To wrap up, I'd like to reiterate some of the main points and key takeaways. So there's an elegant circular world out there for us to aim for. And if we want to get there, it will take effort from all of us to support it where we can. Startups, corporations, government, regulators, nonprofits, and individuals, we're all a part of this system. And there's a robust ecosystem within Washington for people to connect to and leverage for resources and assistance in their path in the circular economy. But despite some rollbacks and uncertainty and federal funding and support, there are still numerous opportunities at the local and regional levels, as we saw, to secure funding, technical assistance, and business planning support for textile circularity ventures. Our region remains committed to accelerating the circular economy and diverting waste from landfills. And scaling is possible with an ecosystem approach. Design the product and the system for efficiency. Pre-consumer textiles, we also heard from Lisa that pre-consumer textiles contribute 41 times more to textile waste than used clothing. We need extended producer responsibility policy that prioritizes domestic reuse and for businesses to invest in the closed loop upcycling of their textiles. And from Julie, we heard that many refugee communities come from cultures with strong traditions of reuse, repair, and repurposing. So we need to make space for their traditions in sustainability conversations. They are the experts. And I really love this one because I think that all sustainability work needs to have people at the center. And that means all people. So environmental justice is extremely important. So we would really appreciate your feedback. It really helps us in planning future webinars. So please take a moment to complete the short survey linked in the chat here from Maya. And stay tuned for our next webinar on Tuesday, May 13th from 10 to 12:30, where we will be exploring cutting edge technologies enabling circular textile practices. Megan or Maya, was there anything else that you wanted to share? And if not, is there anything else? Verbal.
No, thank you so much. That was a really wonderful takeaway, and yeah, look forward to seeing folks at the next webinars.
Wonderful, you all. Thank you again to all our panelists, all of our attendees. That's a wrap. Until the next time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.